I've never been a traditional student. I am going to share in this video my academic journey, like all the way up through law school. And I'm doing this because I hear a lot of young people tell me they are considering law school, but they don't know if they'll be able to get into law school, or they just don't know anybody who's gone to law school or who's a lawyer, or they might have a challenging academic background, and so they think that they're just not smart enough for law school. And I had a conversation with an undergraduate student just this past week, and she was telling me very similar sentiments to that, like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to get into law school. I don't think she has anybody in her family who's a lawyer, and it seemed like she's not really around anybody who's a lawyer. So I shared this story with her, and I'm sharing it now with you. I used to get in trouble all the time in grade school, like literally from kindergarten on, actually preschool, on all throughout grade school. I used to get in trouble for various reasons. I was diagnosed with ADHD by the time I was 12 years old. I didn't get medicated for my ADHD until I started driving, when my doctor said you cannot drive unless you are medicated for your ADHD. So it impacted me, like, I really, looking back, I think all the way from preschool on. I was diagnosed at an early age, and I almost didn't graduate high school because I didn't show up. I would not show up my senior year, which I hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's normal. No, like, I actually was at risk of not finishing high school because of how bad my attendance record was. I failed multiple classes throughout high school, and then I went right into college. And I started at a small liberal arts school because I was on nearly a full scholarship at this small school. And it just did not work out for me at all. I was struggling academically, and a couple things happened that I struggled with socially from my first semester, and I didn't make it through. I just drove home one day. It was like really early November, and I just drove home, and my parents were like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm not going back. It was like a 7-hour drive to get back to my parents' house, and I showed up with all my stuff and was like, I need help getting my stuff out of the car, please. I'm not going back. I didn't get any credits for that semester. Then I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew, well, actually, that's not true. From a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, or at least I knew I wanted to advocate on behalf of other people. And I knew I wanted to use my voice for good, and I wanted to affect positive change in this world. So all throughout high school, I had this in my mind, like, oh, I want to go to law school, but I just don't know if it's for me. My parents do not have 4-year college degrees. My father does have a 2-year associate's degree, and that was a challenge for him because English is not his first language, and he would always tell me growing up and my siblings how he struggled through school, but he was very dedicated, and he was able to make it through and do well in his associate's degree because he knew he wanted to accomplish his goal. So my father would always instill in us that if you are dedicated to a goal, if you have a goal and you are dedicated to it, it doesn't matter what challenges you're going to face, you will be able to accomplish that goal, despite the odds. So I was raised with that. So I knew I wanted to go to law school. I did not think it was possible for me, but with that in mind, I set out for college again. I ended up taking a semester of community college classes, like, I don't know, I think I was like just at full-time credit load or something, like 13 credits or something, 12 credits. I think I was taking 12 credits that semester, online pretty much. Then I got into Pitt for, like, I guess what would have been it was my first year of college, essentially. I would have been going into my second year of college if I had kept up with the first college I had gone to or whatever, or if I had, anyway. So I went into Pitt. I was accepted at Pitt on a contingent offer that I had to get a certain grade in like 9th grade level algebra my first semester at Pitt. I loved it. I loved Pitt. I started training service dogs, and I started up a service dog club with another student at the University of Pittsburgh, which is still going strong to this day. But I was doing really poorly my first semester at Pitt academically, and like my health was really had declined significantly. So I ended up failing a couple of my classes my first semester at Pitt. I did not get the grade I needed in math in my algebra class, and I actually ended up having to take an incomplete because I had missed an exam, and my professor was so gracious to allow me to take an incomplete and to take that exam later. And so at that point, going into what would have been my fourth semester of college, if I had kept up, or if I like was on track, and I don't believe in that sort of thing, that there's like a specific track, or like I don't think I was actually behind, but at the time it did feel like I was behind. So at this point, what would have been like my fourth semester of college, I had one semester done. And I was looking at my options were basically like, you're not going to be able to stay at Pitt. And I just loved Pitt so much. I loved what I had going with the Service Dog Club, and I knew I wanted to stay at Pitt. When I had applied to Pitt undergrad, I knew I wanted to do an accelerated admissions program with the law school. I saw that the law school had this 3-3 program where you do 3 years of undergrad and then 3 years of law school. So it cuts out 1 year of your undergrad technically. And I knew I wanted to do that going into Pitt. I actually mentioned it to my academic advisor my very first semester at Pitt, like right off the bat when you go meet with your academic advisor. At that point, I was considered a freshman because of how many credits I came in with. I was considered a freshman, and I had to go have my academic advisor meeting or whatever, and I told him why would he, they're like, why are you here? Like, what do you want to do? That's kind of like basic questions. And I had told him that I want to go to law school, specifically Pitt, and I wanted to specifically do this 3-3 program. And my academic advisor completely discouraged me from doing the program. He told me he strongly advises against this program. He thinks that students need the extra time to mature, that extra year of undergrad to mature before they go into law school, that it was just, a very academically rigorous program, the 3-3 program, and that with my track record, my academic history, he didn't think I could handle it. I don't like to take no for an answer, so that just kind of motivated me even more. But as I had mentioned, I did not do well my first semester at Pitt, and I had to take 2 incompletes, and then I failed at least one other class, but I think I might have failed 2 other classes. I know I failed my one philosophy class. I just didn't write the final paper. And then my professor emailed me, and I was just not doing well, and I told my professor, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to write the final paper for this class, and I just took like the grade that I got. So I went into the spring semester, like I said, this would have been my 4th semester of college, but I decided I wanted to do this, even though I was not doing well. I was like, I want to do this semester, I want to go back to school. I loved Pitt. I didn't want to give up that dream. But within like a week, I was like, I'm not doing well. I need to reset. I need to come back to a baseline. And so I was able to take a leave of absence. As I had mentioned, I was experiencing health issues, and so I had to coordinate with my doctor and disability resource services at Pitt. And I was able to take a leave of absence, and I took incompletes in my 2 classes. It took me like that whole semester to just get back on my feet, and by the end of that semester, I ended up finishing my 2 incompletes, and I got whatever grade I needed in the math class, and all was well. I was feeling like I was doing a lot better, and I had actually moved back to Pittsburgh from where I'm from in upstate New York, and I moved back into my Pittsburgh apartment by the end of the semester, and I was like, you know what? I really want this. I would have been going into my junior year of college, and like all my friends went right straight through, and they did a very traditional path in college. My twin sister, I'm a twin, my twin sister also, she went straight through, and she was doing really well at a private university. And so and then here I was, like, going into what would have been my junior year also, and I had like 1.5 semesters done of college. But I told myself, I want to do this 3-3 program. So by that time, I would have had 1 year left. I would have had to do just that 1 year if I were like on track for that accelerated law admissions program. So I was thinking like, I don't know if I'm even going to be able to do it because I'm not. It's not like my track was not a traditional track up to this point. And I felt like, I didn't do 3 years, like it's not going to end up working out like that, and I'm going to, if I do, anyway. So I decided, again, I want this. So I ended up reaching out to the financial aid office at my university and explained the situation to them. And I convinced them to apply my unused spring financial aid to a summer semester. I enrolled in 13 credits that summer, again, which like would have been going into my junior year, but I only had like a 1.5 semesters worth of credits. I enrolled in 13 credits in 6 weeks. Usually a semester is, you take 13 credits in like 15 weeks. Coming off of, like dealing with health issues and personal issues and like just things, life getting in the way, and having to take a break from service dog training, I decided I want this. I'm enrolling in 13 credits this summer. I don't know how I'm going to make this work, but I'm going to make this work. I ended up getting the dog back that the first service dog I trained. Her name is Luna. I actually chose her name. And I ended up getting Luna back to train. Her second raiser was studying abroad, and so it just worked out. I was, I felt ready and I felt confident. I was really scared. Again, I was terrified. I was like, how am I going to make this work? I have no reason to think this can work because I haven't done well thus far. And this was really like my last chance. And I was putting all this stuff on my plate, starting to train the service dogs again. And I was also working part-time. I was in a very condensed semester, again, a 6-week semester, taking a full credit load. But I mapped everything out and said, I want this. So I ended up, going and taking the classes, and I ended up with a 3.9 GPA that summer. I was not sure how I did that summer until like the following, like going into the fall semester, like later that same summer, because I didn't have the money to make the final payments for my tuition for my summer semester, whatever the spring financial aid didn't cover from that summer. And so I had to call the financial aid office and explain that to them. And I explained to them how I was working. I usually work and would pay for my tuition bill, and I would also pay for my living expenses, but I wasn't able to work as much that summer because I wanted to catch up on my classes. And some angel at the financial aid office said, I can tell how serious this is for you, how much this means to you. Just 1 second. She put me on a hold. And then she comes back and said, I just found you a scholarship. And don't worry about the outstanding balance. It was thousands of dollars. It was like $2,000 or close to $3,000. And she just like, because I called her and told her, I explained the situation to her. She found me a scholarship and she applied it to my semester, and I was able to then get my grades and enroll in a full credit load for the fall semester. So going into the fall semester, I decided to enroll in 18 credits because I knew that if I wanted to still do this accelerated law admission program and kind of be like on track, I would have to just like hightail it. I mapped everything out, and I saw I have to take 18 credits this semester, I have to take 18 credits the following semester, and I have to take 17 credits that final semester. So that's what I did. I went into my junior year, but it was technically my sophomore year at that point. And also at that time, I was the president of the Service Dog Club, or I was the vice president of outreach, but then ended up that same fall semester, I believe, taking over the presidency for the club. It was a lot of work. I was coordinating puppies all over the campus, and their raisers and sitters, and I was holding classes for the sitters, like training sessions and meeting up with people. And then I also got an 8-week-old puppy to train myself, Lilo, the second service dog I trained. And that was the fall semester of like my junior/sophomore year. Right at midterms, I get this 8-week-old puppy to take home. And I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I am dedicated to this goal. And it went really well. I did really well that semester. I did really well that semester, and everything was going great with Lilo. The club was expanding, and it just was like a great time. And I was also, again, like I said, working part-time. And then again, the spring semester, same thing. I ended up enrolling in 18 credits. Everything went really well. And then I was studying part-time for the LSAT, but I was so nervous about the LSAT and law school. At this point, I was, again, going into what would have been this was when I would have been going into like my senior/junior year. So it was like technically my junior year, but at that point I was going into my 4th year of college. And I was also a vice president for the law fraternity at my undergrad university, and which is an international law fraternity. And as I said, I was the service dog club president, and I was training a service dog. Anyway, I was busy, but everything went well, and I ended up getting the grades I needed. And then I spent that summer part-time studying for the LSAT, because I was also full-time volunteering with AmeriCorps that summer. And I was so nervous about the LSAT that I did not take a single practice LSAT before I sat for the LSAT. I just read a book about the LSAT. Like I had like a Kaplan book or something, and I was reading, and it had practice questions, but I never did any sort of timed anything, or even like a timed like section of like logic games or anything. I had taken formal logic in the fall semester of that previous fall semester, so that was like the extent of my studying, was taking formal logic and then like reading through a book. And because I was just so nervous that I didn't want to take a practice LSAT and do terribly on it and then just count myself out and be like, no, I'm just not even gonna bother to register. So I just was like, I'm just gonna do what I can, and I'm just gonna go take the exam and see what happens. And I think that for me, I was thinking, well, I didn't study, so if I don't do well, like, I didn't study, so, could I really be that surprised? But I ended up getting the exact score I needed. I ended up getting the median score at Pitt. So at this point, I needed to have 102 credits done by the end of my junior year. That's what the program was like. You needed to have 102 credits done by the end of your junior year. You needed to apply to law school a year early, and like in your junior year. And I needed to do extra requirements, like extra writing intensive courses, and I needed to have all my major requirements done by the time I had the 102 credits done, and I was applying for the program. I still had to take the LSAT. So I did all this, and then the last step was to, I had already at this point spoken with the admissions office at Pitt Law, where I knew I wanted to apply, because I wanted to just put like a name to a face. I just wanted to be out, like put myself out there. And so I also wanted to discuss that 3-3 program with the admissions office at the law school. And so I again met with them, because at this point it was like looking like it was real, like really gonna happen. But I was really worried, because I was gonna be finishing up the 100. By the time I would have finished my 102 credits, it would have been at the end of the fall semester of what would have been technically at that point would have been like 6 full semester, or like 5.5 semesters, 6 semesters of classes, worth of classes. But again, technically my senior year, technically my junior year / senior year. Anyway, I was worried, because I was like, oh, well, it's not at the end of the school year, and like, will they still be able to admit me, or will I still be able to apply through this program if it's not at the end of the year, if I'm finishing in the fall semester instead of the spring semester, because most law schools only start in the fall semester. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go meet with the admissions office and ask them, what's the worst that happens? They say, like, no, you can't apply through the 3-3 program. Then I just finished up that final semester. And so I met with them, and they said, yeah, that's fine. I mean, we haven't had somebody do it that way before, but that's fine. Like, I don't see why not. And so as long as you've met all the other requirements. So that's what I did. I applied through this program. And what I forgot to mention is that I ended up not being able to cover the tuition for my, or like everything, like costs and tuition and fees or whatever for my fall semester of like my junior/senior year. And so I ended up convincing the financial aid office again to apply my spring semester financial aid onto the fall semester, because the financial aid was like the 2019 to 2020 academic year. And I told them, well, I'm pretty sure, like, this is going back at the beginning of my fall semester. I told them, like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to apply to this program, or like at this point, actually, I knew I was going to apply to the program, but I was like, I might not use the aid because I might I might take that semester off. And so they let me apply my, what would have been split into 2 payments, the fall semester and the spring semester. They just applied it all to the fall semester. So I had a lot riding on me. I knew, like, if I don't get in to Pitt, I was gonna Pitt Law, I was gonna have to take a year off, or at least that other semester off, that semester in the spring off, because I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it. I had to use that financial aid in the fall semester, so I didn't have any financial aid left to use in the springtime. And like 2 weeks before that semester ended, that fall semester of 2019, I found out I got into Pitt. And I was just so excited and, super excited about it. And so I ended up taking that spring semester off, and it worked out nicely because COVID hit, and I wasn't in class and had to deal with being in my final semester of undergrad on top of COVID, like most of my friends and my sister did. Anyway, so it worked out really nicely. And then once I got into law school, once I started law school, I loved it. I loved law school, and that was the first time that I really think I excelled academically, and I really loved law school. And so I loved school, but I was also feeling extremely out of place. At that point, I was training my 3rd service dog with a different organization than the first organization I trained the first 2 service dogs with. I was with a different organization. It was a small nonprofit, and I was doing kind of like program management type stuff because I had pitched this program to them, and that's how I ended up training the service dog with them. Like, I just cold emailed the founder and the director of the nonprofit, a small nonprofit, and said, I want to raise a service dog with you guys. I want to train a service dog for you guys, and here's kind of what I'm thinking. And so, like, we went back and forth, and she was like, I'm going to pitch this to the board. Like, I like this idea. The rest is history. I ended up going and finding a puppy and testing the litter and fundraising to offset the cost to place the dog free of charge to the recipient, all within my first year of law school. And then the way that this program worked, that accelerated law admissions program I got into law school through, was I did not get my bachelor's degree, my undergraduate degree, until I finished my first year of law school. So because I had said I needed 102 credits to apply to the program, and typically you need 120 credits to graduate undergrad. So that last 18 credits I would have needed, my first year of law school applied to that last 18 credits. So if I hadn't finished my first year of law school successfully, I would not have gotten my undergraduate degree. I had a lot riding on me. And to add to that, the Saturday before I started law school, I decided it was going to be a good idea to take in an 8-week-old puppy to train for diabetic alert. It ended up working out. I did very well my first year of law school, and I did not know at the time that my first year of law school grades were going to count towards my undergraduate GPA, but here we are, they did, and I ended up graduating with honors from undergrad after my first year of law school grades were applied to my undergraduate GPA. If my first year of law school grades were not applied to my undergraduate GPA, I would not have finished with honors because I did very poorly my first few semesters of college. And so I felt out of place. As I had said, I knew I wanted to do something with dogs, like working dogs and justice. Like, that's what I wrote my law school admissions like personal statement about. And I just knew, like, and I still know, this is just like the idea I feel like I've been given almost by something greater than myself, and this is the idea, and this is like I just have to do this. And I was met with a little bit of pushback. I remember in my very first meeting with my professional development officer at law school, it's very similar to the meeting I had had with my academic advisor for undergrad in my very first academic advisor meeting in undergrad. And my professional development advisor had said to me, you know, what do you want to do? And kind of like, why are you here? And I told her, like, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do yet. You know, you're in your first semester of law school. Like, you're not really going to know. But, and like now, like a couple years out of postgrad, like I still don't really know. But anyway, I told her that I wanted to do something combining these two passions and like backgrounds I have of working dogs and justice. And she told me, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you went to law school. You don't have to be in law school to train dogs. Which is fair, like that's true, but that's not why I wanted to be in law school. Again, I felt very like out of place. I left the meeting, Zoom meeting, because this was like fall 2020. After I logged off, I started crying. And then I reached out to my legal writing professor, and I told her, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back in the spring semester. I'm going to see what I can do to get to finish up my undergraduate degree, but I'm not coming back. I felt the imposter syndrome very deeply at this before my professional development advisor had even said this to me. And I'm actually like pretty close with my professional development advisor now. No harm, no foul. She didn't like mean it. And I've come to learn over the years that it's a good thing for people to be like, this does not make sense to me. Because if it made sense to them, then it wouldn't be my unique vision that a lot of other people are super fascinated by. And even like people who count me out and are like, you know, that's silly, end up, when they start to find out more, are very fascinated by that idea and just by my passion for it. So I ended up, all throughout law school, I loved it, but I felt out of place, and I ended up feeling more and more jaded as law school went on of the role that lawyers play in allowing the status quo to continue, or I just felt jaded. I felt like, you know, I came here because I wanted to make a change. I came here because I felt like, you know, I would learn the tools to achieve and advance justice for people who are most oppressed and condemned. But I ended up feeling like that wasn't necessarily rewarded, I guess, in the legal profession. And this has nothing to do with Pitt, because Pitt is such a phenomenal school when it comes to public interest. And that was kind of like my lifeline. The fact that there are so many incredible people at the law school that are tapped into public interest movement, public interest justice movements all over the country, all over the world. And so that was like my saving grace. I ended up kind of leaning on those professors and telling them how I was feeling. Going into my second year of law school, I just had this idea of I should train a courthouse facility dog. And so I discussed it with the organization I was training with, and I ended up getting a dog. There were other things that factored into this, but I ended up like pitching that idea to them next. And then I got a dog and started training the dog for a courthouse facility dog going into my second year of law school. I had no idea how I was going to make this work. I had no reason to think I'm going to bring a dog into a courthouse. I had no reason to think the courthouse is going to let me bring a dog in to the courthouse or even want that or anything, but I just had this idea. I was not familiar with courthouse facility dogs at this point, but I told myself, I'm going to do this. And I did it. I will make another video at another point about how, like more of the specifics about that, but I ended up making it happen. Not with that dog, but I did implement a courthouse facility dog program in my third year of law school at the courthouse in Allegheny County, where I went to law school. And it's a program that's still going to this day. They had tried to do one before, it didn't work out. It was very important to them that if they did try it again, that they did it right that time, and that's where I came in. So never count yourself out just because you are different. I ended up not taking the bar exam after I finished my JD. I ended up on a whim. I moved home to New York, which I never saw myself doing that, but I ended up doing it. And then I took a year off. And then I ended up applying to the LLM program in Hawaii, and that is what took me out to Hawaii. The LLM program, specifically a Master of Laws in Environmental Law, and the program is open to USJD students because some LLM programs are only open to foreign trained lawyers. That program is open to USJD students, and I highly recommend it. If anybody is interested in an LLM at all, please feel free to reach out to me or leave a comment. I'm happy to talk about my experience as a JD who has an LLM as well. Well, actually, I am finishing up the last 2 credits I need for my LLM right now. I shifted into part-time and I took a semester off, and I'm working full-time now, but I'm finishing up the last class I need for my environmental law LLM. I'm taking environmental justice right now. That was kind of like a crash course version of my academic journey. I left out a lot. I actually ended up almost taking a full semester off my 3 year of law school because I had a lot going on personally. My health had declined significantly again, and long story short, going into my 3rd year of law school, my doctors thought I had lymphoma. It was very scary. I was very sick, and then I ended up taking the whatever least amount of credits I could my fall semester, my 3L year. I think I was in 9 or 10 credits. And then what did that mean? I had to take 21 credits my 3L spring semester to graduate and not have to take another semester. And I made it happen. I made it work. I missed my time as a law student at Pitt. I loved my experience in law school at Pitt. Pittsburgh and Pitt will always be so near and dear to my heart. And I also have a non-traditional journey. Most people with a JD do not go on to do more schooling in law. They typically go on to practice law. But I am interested in academia, and that was a big pull for me for why I wanted to do this LLM program. I just felt like I needed to get more school. When everything was all said and done, I was only in undergrad for 2.5 years. So before I started law school. And I went back to school. What did I do? After I finished I did undergrad and law school I was only in undergrad and law school for 5.5 years total between, when you count up the semesters. I took time off in between, so it ended up being 7 years, but it was spanned over 7 years, but all in all, I was only actively a student for 5.5 years. I then went back to school for my LLM, and I loved my LLM program. I'm more than happy to talk LLMs with people. An LLM is a Master of Laws. Anybody who actually watches this video has any questions for me, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Please feel free to reach out to me. And I just hope that if you're considering law school that you don't self-select out. Or that if you're considering any opportunity that, you have to take a bet on yourself and bet against the odds, that you don't count yourself out from it. So good luck studying, good luck applying to things, good luck, putting yourself out there. Just keep putting yourself out there.